It's 9:15 on ABC Radio Brisbane. I'm Kathy Schnitzling and I'm speaking to Laura Boss, the General Manager of Strata Community Association in Queensland. There are new changes that are coming into effect on the 1st of August relating to a seller's disclosure document. You've spoken with the Attorney-General about the difference in the cost. The seller pays $84 for this document, but it costs bodies corporate more like $200 or more to gather all of that information, and there's a big shortfall in between, which the bodies corporate are now having to wear, and you're not going to pass that on to your members. Is there anything you can... What's been the reaction from the government after your meetings about what are the unintended consequences?
Yeah, so we've been advocating around this fee for well over 18 months. So it's been something that is definitely on their radar. The Attorney-General, I heard from yesterday, and they have committed to a review process to ensure that, this is taken into account. They do understand some of the challenges that do sit around this. So we will be, certainly holding the attorney to that review period. But we would prefer that it is sorted out beforehand. There is still time. We're still in July. It is, the 1st of August is looming, but it is not, far away. And, while we do understand that, this is a completely new regime, this document itself is an extension of a previous certificate, but almost double the amount of information. So it's not something that, is light touch by any stretch. We've said you've got time, now's the time to do it, but please understand that there are unintended consequences. Our members won't be absorbing the cost of it, and nor should they, but it will be, as I said, innocent people who are caught, not even a party to the transaction, who will be having to, subsidise the sale of somebody else's property through picking up the shortfall in the cost to produce the certificate.
I've had a text from Francis who says, body corporate managers charge too much. It shouldn't cost so much to provide info that's on body corp records. Now, you've already outlined that bylaws change, insurances change, every piece of correspondence is part of that record. It has occurred to me, the question that occurs to me out of that is, surely there must be some system that can be devised so once this system is introduced that the information is there and easily accessible each and every time. And yes, it does require maintenance if bylaws and insurances change, but that all of that is then kept in the one place so that it costs a lot now, but will it continue to cost that much down the track, or because the initial work has already been done? Do you see the possibility that it's not going to cost as much to gather that information in the future?
Well, to be frank, let's talk about conveyancing. I don't think we go to a lawyer or a conveyancer and say, you that property sold 2 years ago, all that information should be the same, therefore, you should just punch out something and it's done. The issue here is that things do change. And the other part to this also is body corporate records are unfortunately never really complete. So, bodies corporate move from manager to manager to manager. Some records are kept in writing, so there are still paper records, and it's notoriously challenging to be able to find some information. But then you start layering over, you might have a simple scheme. Yep, fair cop. There could be, information that is easily available. But a lot of what we're finding now, particularly with modern buildings, is that there is layers and layers of complexity. And you start overlaying what we call a mixed unit development, which might have retail involved in it as well, and there is issues that need to be identified there. It is not as simple as it seems. And when you actually look at the liability attached to that, in that a sale could fall over or be terminated because of the information contained or not contained in that certificate, there does need to be a level of care and attention applied to that. And this is where having experienced people who do understand strata and who do understand how bodies corporate work, such as a strata manager or even a strata search agent looking for these or preparing these documents, becomes very important. And, this is a big asset. This is something people are buying and, they're putting all of their heart and soul into it. And while I know sometimes these certificates and information can take a little bit of the romance out of the purchase, they are incredibly important in terms of the decision making and understanding what it is that you are buying into. I can't tell you how many times I hear, oh, I wish I'd known about this before I bought, in a body corporate, or I didn't know that we would be hit with a, $20,000 special levy because the roof needed fixing. Mm-hmm. But all of these things become evident, when you start looking at these certificates and getting the information that you need. So, we always say, forewarned is forearmed, and you're making an intelligent choice. But from our perspective, it's just really quite simple. It shouldn't be the people in the middle who are having to pay the shortfall for whatever the certificate costs, depending on what level is required to do it. We're just concerned that people who, such as as I said, bodies corporate, you who just might own a unit, all of a sudden you've got a levy increase to cover the costs of the production of these certificates.
Fiona has asked a question on the text line which says, surely this is where AI comes in handy, feed in accurate information and then ask for a report. Is that something that would be a way around it? Probably not if there's still paper reports.
Yeah, exactly. And look, and I think if you talk to any lawyer about the pitfalls of some AI information, I'm sure you can understand why some of this would be problematic. It just doesn't quite work like that. And also that also relies on somebody having to keep feeding the information. Mm-hmm. At some point, there are always people who are doing the work. So at the moment, we have got some of our, firms who, knowing the amount that of work involved in these certificates, they've got staff that need to be employed to produce them, to, look at the information, make sure it's all correct. And I think that, when you start actually looking at the investment, and, strata firms are mostly small to medium enterprises. They're not big conglomerates. They are hardworking people who do an incredible job. When they need to be able to have the right people to be able to do this role because of the level of liability that is attached to this information.
I have a question from Bev at Bribey, Laura, and the question is, shouldn't body corporates have the right to claim unpaid dues from the sale of the property rather than the person who's buying the property where there are unpaid dues?
That's a really interesting question, and it would be great if it was that simple.
But I knew you were going to say that. Nothing simple about strata.
And there isn't. And, every circumstance needs to be considered in that circumstance. There's not, blanket rules for everything. Debt recovery in strata is a really big deal. And, obviously bodies corporate do their very best to claim monies. But the reality is that it just, if it's not paid or it's not part of the conveyance, for example, if you are doing a sale and part of that sale might be that you demand that is cleared. But if you don't know, you don't know.
You don't know. Laura Boss, it's always intriguing to talk to you about what I don't know about strata and what you do know about strata. Thank you for joining us on ABC Brisbane this morning.
Thank you for your time.
Laura Boss